Shalom, friends. Good evening from Jerusalem and whatever time you're in throughout the world joining us. This is a beginning, a relaunching of our webinar series that Chidush has been offering for the last few years since the COVID-19 pandemic. We are grateful to our partners, the Ruach Chidush, Rabbis and Cantors for Religious Freedom and Equality in Israel, JPLAN, the Jewish Pluralism Legal Action Network, and the American Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists. As I mentioned to those who logged on before, we have had the highest registration for this webinar ever. And there is no telling how many more would have registered if we further announced the availability of this webinar. Undoubtedly, the death of the 9 children of Dr. Ala al-Najjar has provided us with yet another heartbreaking reminder of the very dilemma, of the very challenge that our speaker, Dr. Einav Levy, will be addressing. The uniqueness of Dr. Levy to speak on this topic will be clear to everyone who listened to him. I urge you to read the interview with him that Haaretz published in Hebrew first and then in an English translation, because it'll give you additional dimension of the areas that he will be speaking about. The uniqueness represented by the fact that he is a combat officer, a paratrooper officer, who was wounded in the Gaza war and is professionally and in every other aspect of his being as an activist, as an academician, anchored in the area of humanitarian aid, humanitarian support, and moral concerns, gives him, and through him gives us, an ability to look at this extremely challenging, difficult, moral contradiction, probably one that many of us will have different views on how to understand it and how to resolve it. But we'll have the opportunity to hearing about it and raising questions with Dr. Einav Levy, who is the founding director of the Israeli School of Humanitarian Action and the Lucian Research Center for Humanitarian Action. And as an activist, he led humanitarian and social missions in countries including Jordan, Haiti, Serbia, Zambia, Greece, and Uganda. And I will present a few questions to him at the beginning, and then we'll be welcoming questions or comments that you may write in the chat. And our Director of International Engagement, Gideon Spicer-Bratt, who is with us, will be reviewing the questions and helping us to present them to Dr. Levy. Before we start, let me just mention the save the date notice that you have received via email. Namely, in 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks minus 1 day, we'll have Professor Susie Navot of the Israel Democracy Institute speak on a topic which is urgent as well, though as yet, fortunately, is not involved in bloodshed. She will be speaking about the courts under fire, judicial overhaul amid war. Let's hope that the fire remains abstract, but the war is very real, as you will be seeing in the invitation that will go out tomorrow. And some of the quotes that were uttered just yesterday by the Chief Justice and the Attorney General in response to some of those challenges and the fire that's waged against the courts. So without further ado, let me start and ask Dr. Einav Levy to share with us a little bit of his own background that makes him unique and possibly able to help us think through the challenges, the moral challenges facing a person who is deeply committed to the well-being and the survival and the safety of Israel, and at the same time is fully committed to the notion of humanity and of moral conduct, personal, national, and global. So Einav, share a little bit more with us about your background that brought you to look at the dilemmas facing Israeli officers, Israeli soldiers, throughout this war since the horrific massacre of October 7th.
Right. So first of all, thank you for this invitation and for the opportunity. I'm really honored. And before I start, I want to say something, guys. Let's not be polite, right? We are in what we call domestic audience. Be please as blunt as possible. Ask really difficult questions. Please make it as simple for me to understand what you're actually aiming for without there is no really need to say either to choose the politically what the political correctness terminology. I'm really here to share with you the ideas and to have this discussion and argument. So really in a nutshell, as much as possible. Again, my personal background, the professional background, for many years I involved in social initiatives in Israel and outside of Israel, and throughout these years, in order to maintain my serenity, my ability to go back to the field to face atrocities in humanitarian missions around the globe, but also here in Israel. I was actually forced, or I had to develop this narrative that will enable me to maintain this belief in the good of the humankind. And in order to do that, I combined, my personal view, but also my personal background, family background as a second generation of the Holocaust survivor, which I think that in this discussion there is no need to say a word what it means to be a second generation with all the pathology, because in my perspective, one of our obligations, tikkun olam and involvement in the society, in the role of the person, the human being in this world. I think that when I'm going to the field, to the humanitarian field, to support others who are in their most challenging times in life, in post-conflicts or following disasters, earthquake and as such, I think that no one can really understand the needs and the position of this victim or of this survival, rather than a person that it is part of its narrative. No one will understand what does it mean to be stateless or to be in a consistent need to run, rather than someone that it is part of his own narrative. And I believe what it means to be stateless and second generation. And I think that when I went to the field and I understood what those people need, or assumed, or I saw it back in my father's eyes. Unlike other volunteers from Switzerland or from Sweden, they came with really good intentions, but with something that is really missing that I had. With this narrative, with this belief in the ability to provide support, as my father received from five different world righteous. I found myself in the position of supporting others. And I think that part of what I was involved in following the 7th of October, or part of what I was doing in my military service, it's not contradicted, but it is possible to settle it down in the sense that I think that a person, if he can, he should support his social environment. And I think that our job, or at least my position, can be within the Israeli context, even before the 7th of October, is to be at the field with the soldiers and with the current mission of the Israeli society. And in many cases, in doing my military service in the West Bank, I was in a position that enabling to create a bridge between Palestinians, for instance, in spots where they had to go through, and soldiers who came through with a really right extreme opinion, and me in a position of being in the middle and trying to bridge this gap with a human face towards the Palestinian, for instance, on one hand, but on the other hand, to try to present the position of the Palestinians with my friends, enabled and created the bridge that at some point created a situation where you can maintain this balance. And following the 7th of October, I was recruited again to the army. In the 8th of October, I was sent to Be'eri, which I believe all of you heard about the horrific situation that the people in Be'eri went through. And one of my missions there as an officer was to fight and to help in taking out bodies, but also in trying to find the babies and Jewish children that were hidden, right, in cupboards, in drawers, in washing machine. Thing that takes us back 80 years ago, 100 years ago. And with this experience of asking myself, oh God, again, it happens to us again, Kishinev, it's the pogroms and Dachau, it all happens again here in Israel. I entered Gaza with my unit. And in this position of being a humanitarian in my daily and professional life, I was entering into a situation that me as a military, that is always being perceived as the negative element in the humanitarian field, me as a soldier, I was doing things that, how should I say, they are not really in accordance with the highest moral as it comes to humanitarian values. On the other hand, the main challenge, and I think this is one of the most interesting things to discuss about, is how we can balance between our missions, our tasks, our needs to our, military needs that are also including the important need to maintain moral resilience within the units, within the soldiers. So the soldiers, beside the fact that they will not cause any harm to innocent people, I need as an officer, as a commander, to make sure that the soldiers are doing their job, but that they will not go back home with the moral injury, with this moral breakdown, where they had to do things that when they go back, they'll ask themselves, okay, maybe I was wrongdoing, and then it goes out in PTSD, it goes out in a shape of violence within the domestic violence, So there is also always a challenge how to do your job in accordance to your missions, but in accordance with the highest possible values that will keep, I don't know, this really challenging condition in the lowest effect possible, on lowest negative effect possible. This is the tension I had to maintain. And now, of course, if you have the follow-up questions or things that are more concrete, please feel free.
So in the Haaretz interview, you spell out the difference between your own standards that you feel compelled to follow, and at the same time, your responsibility to your soldiers and their well-being, and your realization that decisions that you may be making may impact on their ability to live or die. And you're referring to an example of an elderly person that may be found in one of those places that have been abandoned by the family that fled away and left an elder member of the family who couldn't run away behind. So could you speak a little bit about those three levels, that of the individual, you, that of the soldiers who are dependent on you and you're responsible for their well-being in addition to the mission? And what does all of that mean for Israel? I mean, can you refer, I mean, there have been questions, blunt questions already coming up in the chat. Can you relate that to the way that Israel is handling the situation? And do you feel that it is led by moral and humanitarian convictions to the best of one's ability in this situation?
Right. So here's the thing. When you're in the field, when you're in a combat situation, especially after we've witnessed the atrocity that Hamas was launching at us, we all entered, including myself, with anger, with pain. We were still fighting in the kibbutzim, with really confused. Israel was a mess, right? Today's a mess, and the days the following the 7th, it was even worse, as you can imagine. Now, at the field level, when we entered Gaza, we entered it's a neighborhood in north of Gaza, it's called Bet Hanun. Many places, the neighborhoods where it was after they were bombed, right? So a lot of rubbles, a lot of mess, and we fought during the night, and it was forbidden to us to lit a candle or a flashlight. It means, guys, that for weeks we lived in a dark. You live in a dark. You hide and you cover windows even during the day. You don't know where you are exactly. In any given time, you can be blown up, can be shot at. You live in a condition of uncertainty. And it's not for 1 day or 2 days. You live like this for weeks. And as an officer, you have the obligation to try to relieve or to reduce the cognitive and emotional burden that the soldier carries, because you need him to be healthy, you need him to be relaxed, you need him to focus. But and it means that you are trying not to too much confuse him with moral questions, right? But the fact is that during the war, there were many hours that we had time to discuss things, but it goes beyond that. I think that one of the missions, both of officers and commanders, but the army and the Israeli society as a whole, is to trying to assure as much as possible that the soldiers are not committing too many, right? Because you enter people's house. I enter people's house that they were not living there. And you see houses with toys, with I don't know, with diary of young girls. You see makeup, you see clothes, you see life. Imagine someone that enters your house, and you enter someone's house and they are not there, and you touch their things, and you cook with their pots and pans, and you sleep in their mattress. And this is already a situation that said, okay, something is wrong here. Now, within this reality, you are trying to maintain this serenity in the sense that it is really, really easy, guys, in this situation where you're at war and in tense and in uncertainty, and after you witness what Hamas was doing, it is really easy to come to the point where you become really, really numb, really, really senseless, in the sense of asking yourself what's right, what's wrong. Um, you need to focus on survival, and it takes you to it took us, took me, took my soldiers to a position, okay, that you might lose your moral judgment, you might lose your sensitivity, you might refer to other people, the Palestinians, their I don't their equipment, in a very, as we say, in a cheap way. You cannot accept as a human being that they are kind of right, that they are also human beings. I don't understand how a human being, it's a natural thing to do, right? So many questions we ask ourselves: how come that human beings can do those things? And one element that helps you kind of is to remote and distance yourself from the same position that the Hamas was holding, in the sense, I am human being, I am an Israeli, I am a Jew. It's not reasonable that those people, the Hamas, are also human beings. And this dissonance, this distance, helps you to become senseless and numb, because when you are dehumanizing them, it's easier for you to do bad things. Now, all of this, this is the reality. And one of the main struggles, as I perceive it, is to try to fight and regain back the what we call in the army moral resilience. One of the initiatives that I'm involved now in the army is creating what we call moral resilience. Moral resilience is everything that we can do as commanders to make sure that the soldiers will go back home. I don't want to say as healthy as possible, but less as less damage as possible, right? Because we all go back, something is not right in our head, as we say. And people go back home, again, domestic violence, lost jobs, lost belief in their society, all the structure that we believed upon is falling. And then I go back home after I become senseless and numb during the war in Gaza, and there is no easy transition. It's really close. You are 1 minute in Gaza, and 2 hours later on, you're with your son in Tel Aviv. You know, Israel is really, really small. How can you make this difference? It's not a process. And I still have friends that, despite the fact they went back home from war a year ago and they're really smart people, they still find themselves struggling and asking themselves, okay, I was doing bad things. Like, now then we understand that it's bad things that are, it's the it's how do you translate roach? It's a necessary evil. Necessary evil, I think this is the right terminology, right? So to enter houses and to, as Uri said, one of the struggles we have is to old people. What do you do with this, with the elderly that were left by their families? So I need to protect my soldier, and my soldier trusts me that I will not put him in in a risk that is not needed, right? So ideally, I say, okay, I don't want to put my soldier in a risk. It means that I will blow up the house, even if I would know that there is a elder or a old person there, right? But at the same time, I don't want to do it once because this is not the right thing to do to the elderly, but also, and this is related to what you say, I want my soldier to know that yes, I keep him as safe as possible, but I need to keep his health, not only his physical health, but also his moral health. I need him to know that we as a unit need to keep on mind that we are not like them. And I think that this is one of the most strong struggles we are having. It's to ask ourselves, and this is the third level, the Israeli society. How can we go back and fix ourselves in Israeli society in the sense that I don't want to be like these people who committed these atrocities in the 7th of October. I want to distance myself. And in order to do that, I need to do things differently. And one of the things that led me this is a continuous discussion throughout Judaism, right? So we have this Admor, this rabbi that lost his 11 children and wife in Auschwitz, and he was asked, he survived the Holocaust. He was asked, okay, what could the worst happen? And he told, listen, it could be even worse. And he was asked, how come it could be worse? And this rabbi said, if it could be worse if this were us who were committed those crimes, right? Golda Meir said more or less the same. Said we can forgive the Palestinians that they kill our children, but we cannot forgive the Palestinians that they force us to kill their children. And while I was in Gaza, I learned a new midrash. I'm not sure what's the name, if there is a special word in English on Pesach. In the Haggadah, as you all know, there is written the Mitzrim yera'u otanu. And for years I understood the Egyptians would cause us harm. But apparently there are Parshanim, Jewish interpreters said, no, it's not that the meaning is we are not angry with them for caused us harm, but we are angry with them because they forced us to be bad people. Now we are bad people because of them. And suddenly you're a bad person. And this is the third level, Uri, of the question, what is where the Israeli society should aim? Not to be as bad as them. Now, how you work around that with this distancing and humanizing, and how you keep this healthy society. But that's it for now.
So we'll probably get to that very question at the end before you sum up. You asked for blunt questions, and I think that quite a number of blunt questions have been written on the chat. And before I turn to Gideon to present to you some of the questions that were asked, I want to indeed continue the Jewish context that you mentioned, and say that there are lots of rabbis on this call, and their struggle goes beyond the moral struggle, the conscientious struggle that we all, every person, should be struggling with. But the question is also, does Judaism instruct us in any helpful way, in any relevant way? And I want to share with you one sad realization regarding war. We say war is hell, but this in a way was said already in the Bible and by the biblical commentators. So on the verse in Deuteronomy 23:10, that says, as you wage a war on your enemies, you should beware of any evil or any and all evil. Nachmanides is saying something very, very profound and very, very relevant. He says, הישר בבני אדם, בטבעו, יתלבש אכזריות וחימה, כצאת מחנה על אויב. Even the most decent, honest, moral person by nature will take on a level of cruelty and viciousness as his unit, as his army wages war. So the question that we'll ask you at the end is, how do we beware of evil under those circumstances? At what point does the individual dilemma regarding the elderly that you described in the interview and mentioned to us now, what do we do when this elderly is multiplied thousands of times? When we are dealing not with an individual, but with numbers that are reaching tens of thousands. So before we get to that, Gideon, take us on to the different questions that were presented, and there's one that I managed to see, and I know that you will refer to it. Rabbi Bruce Kahn said it brings him back to Nam, having served there. Those moral dilemmas, those questions, those difficulties were all there. So later on, I hope that you'll provide us also, to the best of your knowledge, with some comparative perspective, not that it comforts anyone, but it puts things in perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi Uri, and thank you, Dr. Einav. Nice to meet all of you. As Uri said, the new director of overseas engagement for Chidush, and I'm gonna, Einav, put some of the questions to you that participants have been asking in the chat. So the first question from Justin Kerber, as he says, is a blunt question. What is Israel doing? What is taking so long to defeat Hamas or rescue the hostages? And why so much destruction for so little results? So it's a difficult question. To the extent that you're able to answer, can you give us your perspective on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the $1 million question you say in English, right? It's a question not for me, but rather for Bibi. At the personal level, I will share with you again, guys, it's only my opinion, right? Hamas is an idea. Hamas is not a weapon or one person. You cannot demolish an idea. I think that Israel continued to do this war not because there is a point to this war, but due to political reasons to maintain the current coalition. Otherwise, the war is not, I don't see how the war is going nowhere. A year ago, I was involved in this policy paper that proposed to the Israeli government how to develop humanitarian mechanism to Gaza, because we anticipated that at the end of the day, it will be the pressure from the international public and the France and the UK that they will stop their carte blanche to Israel due to the humanitarian situation. This is exactly what happened, right? Israel is going nowhere with its war in Hamas. It's involved now in the humanitarian distribution, the goods distribution. It's helpless as it comes to, I think, as it comes to the hostages. But then again, it's my opinion. No really operational reasoning behind it. And it has nothing to do with the army, the military. I mean, the military could, I think the military, it would sound funny to you guys, but I think that the military is working really not as much as possible. It could do better job. But I think that compared to other case studies around the globe, the Israeli army is working in a situation of the enemy is within the civil society, within they use hospitals and schools, and the Israeli army are not using carpet bombings, right? And we see it through the fact that the army is dropping pamphlets and informing the enemy where they're going to shoot, and they work around the civil society while risking soldiers. I think that we can do better job in protecting those civilians, right? But I mention it because I think that there is no point in this operation. Even if the army would do a carpet bombing and eliminate Gaza as a whole, it won't help.
Well, I think we should, as you said, this is your opinion, and you are certainly entitled to it. And I suspect that many on this call share this opinion. But let's go to those questions that focus on your own personal experience,
Please.
expertise,
Please.
and the dilemmas, the personal dilemmas and unit dilemmas that come under the general question of moral concerns, moral dilemma, and the war.
Thank you. So the next question, firstly, I want to apologize in advance for any questions that we are unable to get to, and thank all of you for submitting questions in the chat. And the next question is from Rabbi Francine Roston, which is, how do you teach soldiers not to dehumanize or demonize the Palestinians? Is there a distinction between a Palestinian person and a Hamas fighter in Gaza?
So I will start with the second question, because we are trying to differentiate. There are protocols and methods how to differentiate between Hamas soldiers and a citizen, right? Where they move and their identity and so forth. But nevertheless, as we all know, there is a major collateral damage. I think it's a really good question how you don't dehumanize. I think that one of the main struggles that I had there, it was with the people in my unit that are Orthodox, not Haredim, but Orthodox, from the West Bank with kippah. I'm not sure what's the right term to use in English, Uri. Dosim, לא יודע, חובשי כיפות, right? I'm not sure what's the term in English.
National religious.
Religious, yeah, religious, but not extremists and not Haredim. Right. And those people, guys, have really, really strong base and belief that they are doing really moral thing. They said, listen, this is the war is a just war. It's a moral war. זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק, right? זה זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק ועל 3 פשעי עזה ו4 לא, right? So and eliminate
was quoting the biblical verses, thou shalt remember what Amalek has done to you, and the verse regarding the crimes of Gaza, namely going back to, I guess,
exactly,
Philistines,
right? This is our memory, 3,000 years ago, right? So this is the same narrative, guys. We keep this same narrative, and they have a really strong moral ground. And I used, when I'm trying to argue with them, because the people who agree with me, they agree with me, right? The argument is with those who don't perceiving Palestinians as or might be not, but dehumanizing them. So you try to speak at the individual level. You say, Adam nivra b'tzelem, ושבעת בני נוח. And you try to use their or the Orthodox terminology.
We need to translate. So the biblical approach to the creation of humanity in God's image, and you refer to the 7 Noahide laws as another example.
Exactly. And exactly. So כל אדם נברא בצלם, and whoever saves one soul saves the whole world, right? So you're trying to speak in their terminology. And the struggle is by the daily life. So for instance, not to ruin the houses, to try to keep the houses where we stayed, the demolished houses, right? Not in a big mess, but to sleep and clean where we slept at, to live in a clean environment, to look at photos. There are so many hundreds of photos. You know, people took throughout the Palestinians, right? Photos from weddings, from studying celebration. I don't know what. And you see people, and when you go with these photos, the soldier understand. Okay, this is a human being. And when you are going, this is what we're going to see, I was trying to do. Part of our post was in markets where Palestinians flee, and they left all their goods in the markets. Shops full of herbs, shops full of food, shops full of TVs, shops full, really, people wanted to live there. And this is something you can explain to the soldier. Listen up, guys. Yes, they chose, yes, they're elected, but at the end of the day, people want to live their life and to struggle for their own, to try to get food, to put food on the table. And they lost everything. And through trying to understand and to provide this approach, this really individual approach of faces to the soldiers, it can be help in reducing the risk of dehumanizing. And it takes us, and this is I will finalize with it. This take me, one of the attempts that I was doing is to tell the guys, listen, we are fighting here on 250 hostages. It was right when we had 250 hostages. What does it mean? It's mean 250 names, 250 people, human beings. And if instead of talking in big numbers, in thousands, I don't know what thousands mean. I know I can grasp several names. I can grasp memories. I can grasp photos, images. Through that, when a person can identify himself with a name, with the face of the Palestinian, I think it reduced the risk of dehumanization.
Thank you. We're going to move to the next question, which is from Esther Hugenholtz, which she says is another blunt question. To what extent can you trust the current Israeli government to be a partner? And what responsibility do you think the Israeli government should take to end this war, bring the hostages home, and reckon with the humanitarian disaster in Gaza?
Where is this? Because I didn't understand the question. Sorry. Where is it? I can't hear you properly.
Sure. Sorry. Apologies for the audio. If there's, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better.
The first part of the question is, to what extent do you think we can trust the current Israeli government to be a partner? And following on from that, what responsibility?
For what?
So I think that connects to the second part. What responsibility do you think the Israeli government should take in ending the war, in bringing the hostages home, and reckoning with the humanitarian disaster in Gaza?
There's not question there. This is responsibility of the government to do all of this. Point. This is the responsibility of the government to provide.
It's fully their responsibility, and more so than. Of course,
it's fully their responsibility. This, even when it comes to the humanitarian, the hostages, of course, ending the war, it's their responsibility. I think that no one argued that. Even Ben Gvir and Smotrich would say this is their responsibility. Right? Maybe, I don't know actually, but I don't think there is doubt. But I think that even when it comes to the humanitarian aspect, humanitarian distribution, I disregard now, or I don't even say about it's part of their legal obligation, international law obligation to be part of this provision of the humanitarian aid. On one hand, I can tell you, listen, I'm not familiar with any case in the history that a country provided food to its enemies. I'm not familiar with such during the war. But I think that Israel it's the interest of the Israeli government to be part of the decision making around humanitarian the mechanism of the humanitarian action, because we didn't deal with it. They didn't deal with it until now. They used the humanitarian aid as a political tool, as a leverage, and to put pressure on the Hamas instead of saying, okay, we know we need to distribute food or to make sure that humanitarian actions are being conducted, but they didn't do it. And I think this is their interest now.
Yeah, okay. The next question that we're going to ask is from Rabbi Shalom Schachter. He asks, the military campaign against Hamas has proven that it cannot achieve the objective of total annihilation of Hamas, as the situation is one of whack-a-mole. Wherever Israel cleanses a section of Gaza, Hamas raises its guns in another section. So, given the relative high loss of Gazan civilians for each Hamas fighter killed, let alone the death of Israeli army personnel, what can be the ethical justification for continuing the war? So that's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question, which connects to something that Justin Kerber also asked, is, with that in mind, is there any ethical barrier for Jews in the diaspora to press President Trump, or for that matter, other political leaders, to take whatever action is necessary to get Bibi to end the war, including cutting off weaponry supply? So the second part of the question is a wider question about what we can do, what action we can take in the diaspora in terms of political pressure.
Let's try and focus on the topic. Obviously, we all have opinions, and we have heard that Dr. Levy does too. Stick to for instance, that aspect of the question that asks you about the ethical justification that you feel as a person committed to humanitarian causes. Do you feel that there is an ethical justification for the conduct that generates such carnage, so many casualties in the civilian population in Gaza? When you ask yourself,
I don't think there is
question,
when it comes to the moral justification, I can think of one, or for example, though maybe I'm not agree with, but I think that when you are morally, and I had this argument with a really smart and popular rabbi, he said, listen, we are instructed by God, by moral, to eliminate the evil. Now, I am a humanitarian. I understand it. Part of our job, of my moral duty, is to do everything in my power to fight evil and everything that it includes, and every system and infrastructure that is not only enabling, but also encouraging this evilness, right? So if I refer to the Gazan case, everything in this ecosystem in Gaza enabled and encouraged these atrocities. So if I'm looking for justification, I say this is a moral duty to eliminate every element that may encourage further atrocities as were done. Now, I think this question is not a question to ask in the sense that it implies that the war is either moral or not moral. I think this is not the interesting discussion, because I think that going out to the war, the beginning, is the moral and just thing to do. Within that, the challenging thing would be, within this moral justification to go to the war, are the moral things or the unmoral things that we are doing. Within the war, the fact that the war is justified, it doesn't mean that every action within the war is also morally justified. It's like the Holocaust. Second war was not morally justified, but within the war, there were many moral elements. And this is the struggle, not to be binary or dichotomic, but rather throughout the daily life, throughout the daily decisions made by commanders, officers, whoever is in the field, to ask themselves, within this justified war, am I doing the moral current decision in blowing up this house, in diverting this population? This is the struggle, not whether a mass killing is justified or not. And in that, this is the contradiction we see in the decision making on the field.
So the next question.
And when it comes to your job, guys, just call Trump and tell him to sit on BBZ and to stop this. We need those hostages back home, guys. It's too much. We need them back home. They need to be back home.
The next question is quite a personal one, if that's okay, Dr. Einav. The question is from Shoshana Perry, which is, how have you evolved in terms of what it means to follow orders after October 7th, and now a year and a half later, in terms of the strategies and ideology of the current Israeli government?
I didn't understand the question, sorry.
In terms of your personal feelings, morals, have you evolved at all since October 7th in terms of how you feel in terms of following military orders, considering clear disagreements that you have with certain with positions of the government?
No, I wasn't thinking that I will be not really modest. I had really strong moral ground before. I still hold my opinions. It was at some point it became kind of a joke between us. I follow the orders. I luckily at the personal level, here's the thing, guys. I'm serving as always said in a special paratroop unit. My friends are really, they are thinking, they are critical people, they are not extremists. So we could have discussions, and we didn't come across to a really difficult moral decision. I think that generally, based on what I witnessed in the ground till these days, my units or any units, they didn't receive any straight order of doing something deliberately that is morally challenging. Right? It's not deliberately, okay, go and do this, go and kill children. No one think to give this order. No one think, okay, go and kill women deliberately. It's been done through to people who don't not pay attention, or through bad people in the Israeli army that do bad things. But as it comes to the general environment, I didn't sense that there is a general atmosphere of let's change the orders in a way that they become unmoral. I can tell you that throughout the war, if at the beginning I have friends or colleagues who are working with drones, right, in the Air Force, and say, okay, at the beginning of the war, said, okay, we identified this wanted Hamas officer, and they were about to bomb him. We said, okay, there is a calculation. One Hamas, it is worthwhile of killing 12 people, collateral damage if it's one person. Throughout the war, it evolved through, okay, one person to, I don't know, 70, or, right? So at some point we lost counting, and the numbers became too high to count. And this is what I mean when I said earlier we started to lose the faces and numbers. I don't know what is 50,000, 60,000 Palestinians dead. I don't know. And it becomes easy on the thing the pilots use on their cockpits.
On a connected note, actually, we have a question from Anna Pełonski, which is, given the technology to do targeted attacks, for example, things like drones that you mentioned, what, if any, is the moral or ethical justification for causing so much more extensive damage to innocent people, including children, in Gaza?
No, these questions. It's not. There is no. I mean, it's there's no moral. I mean, the decision whether to shoot at or not to shoot, it's operational decision. The challenge is not, again, it's not dichotomic. It's not dichotomic whether there is or not, right? And what is the volume of, okay, 1 to 10 is okay, but 1 to 20 is not okay. So personally, I don't think there is what we call deliberate mass killing, right? The needs now are more operational or to put pressure on the Hamas. There is no discourse around whether these decisions are moral or not. The decision came, how should I put it? Instrumental. This is what goes at the back of the mind. So it's instrumental, and whether they will be able to defend it when it comes to The Hague and international law, and whether they can justify it when it goes to the defense cabinet in the Israeli parliament, in the Israeli government, not around whether it's right. I can tell you that there is growing this Israel about the killing. I mean, I see it by the day, almost by the hours, more and more groups, more and more discussions in the newspaper, even in those TV channels that are not really left ones, but they're ones that are more in the middle. They start to talk more and more about the civilian death in Gaza. So people say, okay, it's useless, it serves nothing, and it's on our head. But then again, it's at some point it only the discussion is around the operative, but the public should put a pressure on the government. This is how I perceive things. I'm not sure it referred to the question.
Thanks. In the meantime, I'm just going to remind everyone what Rabbi Uri said. If there's questions pertaining more to the moral, ethical side of things, please feel free to continue to ask questions. The next question we're going to ask, which is connected to something you were talking about before, but about how you reconcile your own feelings, but connected to that, I understand, an officer, and you have soldiers under your command. How do you teach those soldiers? Sorry. The question is about how you help your soldiers reconcile their moral feelings with the orders being given. You spoke about it from how you reconcile it for yourself, but how do you sort of help your soldiers going through those same dilemmas?
So when in the field you try to keep things simple, right? When there are operations, you try to give certainty. You try to give clear orders. We try to give things that you do know. My interest is that the soldiers will continue, and we do it through discussions when we are not in the middle of a shooting battle, right? Is to discuss about politics, to discuss about literature, to discuss about women, to discuss about life, guys, to discuss about what does it mean to be a human being, to discuss about the families, to discuss about dreams, to discuss about everything that takes you to the point where you remember, I'm not a soldier, I'm a human being. And as a human being, I have my obligations, my values, my ideas. And when you remind the soldiers that they are human beings, for they are soldiers, it's easy to reflect with them, together with them, the idea how to keep the daily tension as it comes to the needs to be operational and moral as well. But again, it's by the day. It's by the simple things.
All right. So lots of questions where naturally of a political nature because people are frustrated. And clearly, you resonated with many. But I'm sure that those who ask those questions will be able to find other outlets in which that angle will be discussed. So let me maybe bring us to a close, looking at the future rather than at the present. You provided us with a particular, guidance as to how to resolve the current situation and get out of Gaza. But getting out of Gaza will not result with the moral dilemmas and the harm done, not just to the Gazans, but to Israelis. So in your professional hat, how do you see Israel addressing the emotional harm, the mental harm, and the moral unresolved questions in the future, in the coming years, in the coming months, assuming that this war will come to an end? So can you give us a sense of, is this repairable? And how would you go about it?
So here's the thing, it will be endless. It's I think, as I perceive it, after I came back from the war and the wound, I started to work only with when it comes to with the Israeli communities, evacuees. The stress, right? You speak about the stress, about the well-being of us, I believe, right? Not about the Gazans, if I understood you correctly, right? All the
I was
nation.
asking, actually, I was asking about both.
Yeah. I think that it goes in two levels. First, I think that this is it's not, it's not only it's the evacuees, it's the PTSD, the soldiers with the trauma, if they have it or not. It's the people, even people who are not directly affected by the war. My parents, my students, everybody knows someone, and the main shock on that, we believe in the Israeli army. We believe that people are human beings. This a fracture, this break of all the thing we believed in, this is the real trauma. Now, it goes both in the individual level, where we as a society, through NGOs, through awareness to our neighbors, through small initiatives, through governmental projects, through the army, on all these levels, including I'm involved in several initiatives that I'm a director in the organization. It's NGO. It's called Amakom. We've opened up a place in India for Israelis who are coming and traveling there, doing drugs, whatever. And we host them in this big place, providing psychoeducation and explanation about PTSD, about stress, and talking and chatting and it's a pillar between what happens here and what happens there in Israelis that are not connected, and involvement of hospitals and the Ministry of Welfare, and it's all combined. And I think that yes, we can provide individual treatment. We can provide through those NGOs or government. We can provide community treatment with groups. We can create collaboration. But I think at the end of the day that the most important thing, but it requires leadership and visionary people that we do not have currently, is to try to take this, I don't know how to call this event, this situation, and to use it, and I'm not sure it's the right word, to leverage it to make our society even better. So to heal through it. because before that we had this fraction between ourselves, right? But now we can use it in the sense, okay, let's start to talk again. Let's heal the society. Let's use this break in order to invent new Israeli, new vision, new בשורה, how do you say בשורה?
Message, vision.
New message to the world, to ourselves. We need, guys, to develop new narratives of who are we and who do we want to be and how we want to perceive ourselves. And I think that through these questions of internal rehabilitation, I think that in the long run, yes, we will remember it in our historical memory as a trauma, but you say, okay, we managed to rise out of it, because the alternative that we'll go back to the diaspora, it's really, really bad. We've been there and it didn't turn out quite well, as you all know.
Well, I think we come to an end of a very challenging, emotional session. We thank you. You've been remarkable in sharing with us your insights, and even if you have not stated it, I think clearly you found yourself in an impossible situation, because what you were faced is a conflict between your own firm convictions and a reality that is anything but conforming to those convictions. And thank you for pointing out that to the best of your ability, you tried to say the right thing and do the right thing and provide the right leadership to those around you in helping them and helping those that they were fighting, so that the fighting would be done in as moral and restrained a manner as possible. There are just 2 points for closing. One that you alluded to, I'm not raising that as a question, just parting thoughts. You alluded to some of the religious soldiers, officers, and of course the counterparts in the government. We face a reality which we will be hopefully discussing in another webinar in about a month. We haven't confirmed the date yet, with Dr. Kobi Shapira of the Ministry of Justice, Jewish Law Division, who'll be studying with us Jewish sources that bear on these questions. The reality is that those who speak for Judaism, such as the religious parties, are providing us with a vision and a mission that you alluded to, namely, kill them. There are no innocents there. There are no uninvolved there. Children, women, the elderly, they all deserve to die. It's a horrible, I'll express myself, it's a horrible Jewish message that undermines everything that you have spoken about, and everything that I think most rabbis and activists on this call believe Judaism is committed to. You spoke about the individualization of the horror, not 50,000, but an individual. I think, and it wasn't specifically mentioned in the questions, but I think that the pictures of the 9 children may be that very individualization of war is hell that may pave the way for rethinking. Clearly, and you alluded to it, clearly there are already combat pilots who are reported to be asking questions as to the mission that they are tasked with. Clearly, there are many around the world who are asking questions even as they have been standing by Israel for a long time and have been fully supportive of Israel in its plight after October 7th. I think for many of us in Israel, the feeling is that we will need to reboot the Zionist enterprise.
Okay.
That October 7th put us at a turning point, not just in terms of the war, but in terms of what Israel is about, in terms of the mission of Israel, in terms of reconciling all of that with the notion of a Jewish and democratic state that aspires for peace and coexistence. Will we find the leadership, the presence of mind, the ability to engage in such rethinking and rebooting and bringing us to that place that you have spoken about, that is not that different from the vision that Israel's Declaration of Independence has described, but somehow over the decades has, to some degree, maybe even a great degree, atrophied. So you've given us some direction and some hope. I think that there are many optimists on this call, definitely those who still remained with us now. There are many optimists on this call. We are committed to the well-being of the Jewish people. We are committed to see Israel through this crisis, keeping our moral fiber, keeping our humanitarian backbone, and keeping Israel as a light to ourselves, to the Jewish people, and hopefully be able once again to be a light unto the nations. So thank you, Dr. Levy, and please remember, save the date.
I have one request.
Yes, of course.
Can I have a request? One request, guys. Here's the thing.
Sure.
Someone asked earlier, what can you do? I tell you what you can do, guys. Don't abandon us. We are in a really, I mean, I believe some of you at the States or wherever, we really need you with us. I know what you see in the news. This is a struggle for who we are as a nation. We really need good people with all the criticism we can agree upon. We are fighting, we are struggling. Don't leave us. With all the criticism, share your support. That's it.
That's a great ending. And I think for those who are starting to raise questions that they may not have raised before, seeing Dr. Levy and knowing that there are many Dr. Levy's out there, even if they don't have his particular qualifications, there are many Dr. Levy's out there. So indeed, I second his motion. Stay with us, and together we will make Israel go back to its
Amen.
founding vision and to its
Amen.
mission into the future. Thank you, Shalom, and I hope to see you all on June 9th.
תודה, חברים.
And
you, guys.
bring the
תודה
hostages
לכם.
back, all of them,
Indeed.
now.
All of them now.